The following talk was given at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California. Please visit our website at audiodharma.org.
Hindrance attack, where they all come together, but they keep trying to wake up, bring mindfulness, be mindful of it. The person who just sailed along didn't develop any strength of mindfulness, didn't develop any self-understanding of how to work with it, because they just kind of coasted in this relaxed place. And the person who had to really work hard and be mindful, they really developed themselves. It wasn't so satisfying, but it's more portable to develop your skill and your strength in practice than it is to have a nice experience. Portable means that you can go to different places and bring it with you if you develop the muscle, in a sense. But if you don't have the muscle strong, then, if the conditions are right, it might work, but then you're not prepared for when it's going to be challenging in the future. So both you're lucky to have both in one day.
It was interesting when I started tracking both, because first I was tracking once at night, once in the morning, but then I started to really see the pattern.
Nice. I think that's great. Someone else doing that, filling out that exercise?
So yeah, I saw it change throughout the week, and I also saw how some of the hindrances made it actually challenging to think about the hindrances. I overthought it a lot. So I had a question. There was also that list of things to rate: concentration, motivation, and the like. And perhaps I did it wrong, but my thinking on those changed throughout the week. At first, I was thinking if it was easy to concentrate, for example, I rated it highly. And then I thought later in the week, well, perhaps I don't want to be concentrating. I just want to be going with the flow. So, how might you suggest thinking about those other attributes that we were, rating?
Well, what occurs to me, it's a good question, and what occurs to me is maybe it's not so important what I had in mind or what exactly those mean. What's important is that what you think they mean. So that because it's really meant to be a mirror for yourself. And so even if you had a completely different idea than what we had in mind, it might be the perfect mirror for what you're going through, what you're about. So I think having that the subjective, personal quality to this, and not looking outside for a standard about how it's supposed to be, actually is helpful for mindfulness. You're not supposed to. So I'm using you as an excuse to kind of make a more general point that we don't want to kind of try to fit ourselves into some external standard about what the right practice is. But rather, we want to use the mindfulness as a kind of a mirror and grow in self-understanding, know ourselves. And as we know ourselves, then we'll develop a skill and ability to practice in a way that's useful for us, that's supportive, that's freeing. But if someone thinks that there's a right way, too much rightness in meditation is wrong. We get all wrapped up. I remember last week I said, you don't want to be too good at this. Is that an adequate answer for you?
Yeah, that's helpful.
Great. Someone else? Maybe one more? Oh yes, Fiona.
I found it somewhat challenging during sitting because of the rating.
The rain?
I knew at the end of the sitting I was going to be rating.
Yeah.
And so it really took me a while to actually just sort of sit and not have another voice grading me at the same time. Like, oops. So I wasn't really, it felt like, okay, I was observing, I wasn't quite there.
Yes.
And but then I went on the back page and wrote like notes. That almost was, so I filled out your form, but it felt good to me to go on the back and then just sort of think about the setting and what actually happened without a grade.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's very nice. And when I practiced in Burma with my Burmese teacher, that was the instructions, was at the end of every sitting we had to do field notes. And we weren't supposed to evaluate the sitting, we weren't supposed to judge it, and we weren't supposed to theorize about it. It wasn't journaling and trying to, well, this means that, and this is why, and it was just like being a naturalist and just write down the field notes. The hindrance of ill will arose, and you don't write, oh, it's because of my mother when I was 6, and no, the hindrance of ill will arose. It took a while to notice it. I noticed it. When I noticed it, I felt that I was tight in my stomach. I brought attention to the tightness of my stomach, and then it loosened up a little bit, and I noticed the hindrance got a little bit lighter. But then it got replaced by fear. And it took a while to find where the fear was in my body, but then I found it in my solar plexus area, and I brought attention to that, and then I found that I kind of resisted it and was a little bit cautious around it. But I just stayed there and did the best I could, and after a while it dissipated. So there's no evaluation, it's just a kind of field notes of what I experienced and how I practiced with it. And what happened to me when I did that in Burma is that it kind of encouraged me to not to be self-conscious and think about it, but it encouraged a kind of heightened awareness that I liken to the kind of attention you use if you want to memorize something. You read something, you want to memorize it, you're kind of like paying attention a little bit more fully or taking it in more fully. And so it was that little heightened attention that I brought to my sitting. And for me, it supported me getting concentrated and present, and because I knew I had to write this thing afterwards. So your notes at the end, maybe for you, is great. Yeah, go ahead, Cedric.
Well, I found this was really useful, especially considering the instruction you gave before to be really simple and just simply notice how we are and be honest with our preoccupations, our feeling, and not try to jump in and go straight to focus on. And that, for me, doing that was challenging, and also the instruction to notice the hindrances made me notice much more the desire to change my experience and to achieve something, and that this isn't good enough, and I should focus on my breath, and noticing it was very humbling, and I saw much more clearly, specifically, the desire to.
So you saw desire operating, and desire to get something, and you learned to be simple with that. It was kind of humbling to see how much it was. And it was helpful for you just to be very simple with and seeing the desire and not get caught in it.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Humbling.
Humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I noticed also that for me, lethargy and aversion didn't come often or very little. So I wondered. So that also made me reflect. Is it really because it didn't rise, or is it because I'm not recognizing it, or I'm not reading it? Yeah, so just...
So lethargy and ill will?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I think it's great what you're seeing, and that part of the task of all of us, including you here, is to become experts in how this works in you. And you can only become, because you really want to understand how the magic show is made. Then you won't get caught in the magic of it, right? You won't be mesmerized. If you really understand how your mind operates with the hindrances, how it relates to desire, how it believes in a desire, leans into it, holds on to it, reacts to it, the dynamics of desire, the dynamics of ill will, the dynamics of the hindrances. And the more you understand it, the wiser you become about it, the less likely you're going to be caught in it. You'll find more freedom from it. The bad news of what I'm saying is that in order to become an expert, you have to have them. So you can look at them and study them. But that's also good news, because if you're a human being, the hindrances will come. That's kind of built into being human. It's a kind of very common phenomena that arise. And so rather than taking it as some terrible personal failing, it's a reminder that you're human. And your job is to study them, get to know them. And very few people take the time to really see and look and understand how this works, how their mind gets caught in their web. And the part of the task of mindfulness is to, because we keep showing up to look at it, to be present for it, to see it, the understanding will begin to dawn on you. And so I think that for you, you're launched. You're launched. You started the process.
I think so. Maybe one last thing is, then I'm still on.
I'll hold it closer, so I can.
So, like I said, I resisted a lot the urge to do something or kind of use a strategy to improve the experience.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm really confused, and that's doubt about when to actually do something, tinker a little bit, or just my posture.
Yeah.
I've resisted a lot, but sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. That's a great. That's a great issue. I mean, when do we just resist to attempt to try to fix something and change something? When do we just let it be? And when do we actually get involved and change something? Your knee hurts. Do you adjust your posture so that you don't sit with the pain, or do you just sit noticing you have desire to change and just don't adjust it? So that takes wisdom, which is to be a little bit of a topic for today. And wisdom comes partly from experience, and experience comes from making mistakes. So it's partly trial and error, meaning we try something. So you might notice I'm always trying to fix things. I'm always trying to adjust it. I didn't know how much I was doing that. I think what I should do now is try not to adjust it for a while. Maybe for the next week, I'll experiment with just being present without making any changes. And then after a while, you realize, that was kind of silly, because, the back room of my house was burning down. I think I should have gotten up and taken care of it. So anyway, so you want to sometimes the part of the way we move forward in mindfulness practice is a trial and error, and through the trial and error, you get the evidence. You learn the lessons to become your own teacher and find your own way. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Great.
It's
and one
tough to accept our mistakes.
Sorry?
It's tough to accept our mistakes sometimes.
No, I can't hear because.
So it's no problem.
Okay. And so part of the trial and error is noticing when you're doing trial and error too much. If you're always doing trial and error, then you just get agitated. So just get relaxed, at ease, but there is a kind of, take your time, and then lots of time. And if anything, we kind of lean in the direction of leaving things alone and not fixing, not changing, just really showing up and being present for things. Of course, there's times to change. So that's part of the art. So I think it's a good kind of introduction to what we're going to do today. And I'll start off by evoking a little teaching that I do often in the intro class. And that is that I very much like the word respect as a synonym of mindfulness. And the reason I like this word is that from Latin, the word respect can be understood in English to mean, is this okay for you should we turn it off now for you? Can we make it a little bit, maybe turn it up 2 degrees there? Yeah, Kate will do it. So it becomes slightly warmer then. The art is it goes up to 76? 77, okay, let's leave it there. Because some people will get a migraine sometimes if there's too much cold air blowing. So we'll see if that makes a difference. So the word respect from Latin kind of means to look again, like spectacle. And so to look again, and part of mindfulness is involved taking a good look at what your experience is. And the idea that you're taking a second look is a nice idea. When I was relatively new to this practice, I did the kind of checklist approach to mindfulness, where I knew I was supposed to be mindful of things, and so I would be aware of something, and it was like I checked it off, done with that, let's go on to the next thing. As if, the more things I could note and check off, the quicker I get through the test. But the idea is not to how many things you can be aware of, but rather the quality of your awareness. And part of that quality is to take a second look, or take a deeper look at what's happening. So there's a choice made to look at, to stay there. Let's take another look. Let's look more carefully at this. So if you're staying with your breathing in meditation, and you feel your breathing, so it's easy with the breath also to kind of just suddenly, just be with it for a moment of the inhalation, and then the mind goes off in thought. But the idea is to kind of take a deeper look at the inhalation. Just really look at it again. Look at it more fully. Experience it more fully, the whole experience of breathing in. So for example, the inhalation has a duration in time, maybe relatively brief, but to see if you can have equal quality of attention the whole length of the in-breath. Because the mind will keep jumping off, even that short time. And you might have a high quality attention for a moment, and then you've been drifting off in thought, or get a little bit lazy, or kind of you've done your job, like my checklist approach. And or say there's a hindrance comes up, and so you have this, you check it off, there's desire, but then you don't want to just kind of move on. The idea is to take a second look, or look at it more carefully. Allow there to be a relaxed, fuller registering of the experience. That continuity of attention, just be with there. And sometimes we take a third look and a fourth look, meaning just kind of stay there and be there with it, really to get to know it. And that does a couple of important things. One is it helps us to see it more clearly for what it is. But equally important is that we're beginning to learn a way of being attentive that's relaxed and direct, where we're not reactive to the experience. So if I feel a knee pain, I might note it, be aware of it for a moment, and I might recoil from it and go into my thoughts and try to avoid it, or I might react to it. But then the idea is, let me go just take a second look. Let me be there for a few moments with that knee pain to really experience it. And as I experience it, I notice that I really hate it. And so I'm tightening up because of my aversion to it. The hindrance of aversion is operating. But then I see that, and then I let go of the aversion, and then eventually I learn to just be with the pain for a few moments in a very simple, equanimous way, with no reactivity to it. And that's a powerful thing to do. Even if you can learn to do it for a few moments, that's the beginning of a training of a different way of living your life. Living your life wisely, connected to your life, but not being pushed around or caught up in all the details of what's happening. So the idea of respect, giving things a second look. So in this sitting that we'll do now, I'll do a little guided meditation to get us settled a little bit, and then ask you to do a kind of a second look at certain things, and you'll see what you learn about yourself and how well you're able to have that second look be equanimous or spacious or just kind of non-reactive. So taking an upright, alert posture. And gently close your eyes. And it's often good when you start a meditation to begin by doing something that helps ground you in your body. The body is the support for mindfulness. So a body that is upright, but also relaxed. And you might begin by taking a few long, slow, deep breaths. And as you exhale, soften your body, relax. As you exhale, ease up on what's happening. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And take a few moments more with your body, perhaps by feeling in a clear, direct way the contact of your body with your chair or your cushion or the floor. And perhaps in that contact you can feel stability, weight, a kind of groundedness to this time and place. So that contact with the chair and the cushion is a definitive reminder that you're here and now. You might soften around your shoulders. And you might soften your belly. And then, similar to how you grounded or settled into your body, you might see if it's possible to do something similar with the mind. And take a few moments to feel the energy or the substance or of your mind. Maybe it's calm, maybe it's agitated. And then maybe as you exhale, see if you can soften the mind. Relax any holding you feel in the mind. Perhaps by relaxing the thinking muscle, relaxing the tendency, the energy of thinking. And then allow yourself to experience your breathing, the sensations in your body as you breathe. Offering respect to those sensations in the sense of taking a deeper look, clearer look. but not by straining, but more like opening the windows so you can see more clearly. And that giving the breathing a second look is to have more continuity through time with the breathing. Kind of like you're petting a cat, and you keep your hand on the fur of the cat the whole length of the pet, the whole length of the stroke. So you take the hand of awareness and let it kind of stroke the whole length of the in-breath, the whole length of the out-breath. When the mind wanders off in thought, it's not a problem if you know clearly that's what's happening. You can even respect the thinking mind by recognizing it again more fully. Not as a problem, but something to know clearly that this is what's happening. Your mind is thinking. And it's in that second look where we can begin to experiment with being free, to recognize without being caught, to know clearly what's happening without being caught up in preferences, liking and not liking, just knowing clearly. And after you've clearly recognized and respected your thinking, then come back to breathing, offering the same respectful attention to your body breathing. If there is a strong body sensation that arises as you're sitting here, bring that respectful attention to the body sensation. Give it a second look. Experiment to see if, even for a few moments, if you can find that respectful attention that sees clearly without preferences or without wanting or not wanting. Allows the sensation to be there as if it has permission to exist. And your job is just to know it. If there are emotions that arise that are compelling, bring that respectful awareness to the emotions. Take a better look at it and see if in the looking or the awareness, if you can be equanimous or relaxed, at ease. Just seeing, no judgments. If there's a lot of thinking going on, see if you can bring that respectful attention to the thinking. That kind of attention that looks at it, sees it clearly, knows it clearly, but doesn't get involved in it, doesn't think about it, doesn't evaluate it. Awareness which is not bothered by it, just knows it. And whenever it makes sense, begin again with your breathing, offering that respectful attention to breathing. And in practicing this respectful attention, there are a number of other factors that come into play that you might not notice, but they're there. The first to mention is that you might have some degree of confidence or lack of confidence in this practice of attention. If the confidence is strong, then you might give yourself over to just knowing with some enthusiasm. But if there's a lack of confidence, you might be reluctant to really offer respectful attention. So you might notice the degree to which there's confidence for you in a non-judgmental way. Just how does it work for you? how in a relaxed way, without trying too much, can you allow there to be more confidence that supports attention? Another factor that comes along with the practice of attention is the degree of effort or energy that we have for doing so. If there's little confidence, we don't really apply effort, much energy to it. If there's confidence, sometimes there's a natural kind of infusion of effort, energy, or maybe the better word is engagement. And as you're sitting here practicing respectful attention, how much energy is there for doing so? Strong, weak, balanced energy? How is it? And then as you're sitting here, there'll be some degree of concentration or stability. You bring respectful attention to something, and you can kind of stick to it for a little bit. You give stability, focus, really be there. And that concentration might be relatively strong or relatively weak. If it's weak, we kind of slide right off right away. If it's stronger, we kind of hang in there and stay for a second and third look. And how is it for you? What's the degree of concentration or stability? And then as you're sitting here, another factor that comes along with attention is understanding. And we can have a very simple understanding of how the practice is going. Understanding what we're bringing attention to, understanding of how to apply ourselves, or understanding of what gets in the way or distracts us. We can understand that we want to offer a second look. We can understand the difference between being reactive to the experience and being non-reactive. We can understand the difference between seeing or feeling, sensing the experience versus thinking about it. And without doing a lot of work, there can be just a natural degrees of understanding that are either there to support the practice or that's absent. And how is it for you? And then finally, this practice of respectful attention. There's a quality of mindfulness or awareness that's intimately integral to it all. And there can be a range, a degree of how clear that mindfulness is, that awareness is. Is there a clarity of awareness of what's happening in the moment? Or is it fuzzy? Or intermittent? Or weak? So last week we talked about the 5 hindrances that take us away from being present. This week the focus is on the 5 things that help support us to stay present. Confidence. Effort. Concentration. Understanding. And mindfulness. So to end this sitting, you can take a couple of deep breaths, feel your body, feel the contact with your chair or the floor, cushion, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So, in Buddhist meditation practice, what we're looking at, what we're developing, are the attentional factors of the mind. There's many factors that come into play that help us be attentive, to pay attention. It's not just a singular thing, just to be mindful, just to be aware, but there's a whole ecology of the mind that's operating. And there's many factors that come into play. And so part of developing mindfulness more fully is to understand some of this ecology, the different elements, what's happening in our minds as we're practicing. So last week we talked about the 5 hindrances. It's part of this ecology. I think of them as the strategies we fall back on when we're emotionally challenged by something. And so sometimes we want desires, we want something. Sometimes we have aversion, sloth and torpor, restlessness, regrets, doubt, are all things that make it very hard to be fully, clearly present. But it's possible to turn your attention towards them. And rather than having them be forces of distraction or forces of getting lost in, you can bring this respectful attention, this second look, and really recognize, oh, this is what's happening. And there's a way that second look can help you be, they're still there, but you're not caught in them. You're free of them. You're free from being, enmeshed in them. Oh, I see you, desire. Desire, you visit me all the time. And you've been leading me around. You've had the run of the town, run of the mind for years. But you know something? It's time to grow up. And I'm just going to see you and recognize you rather than running off with you or getting caught by you or being pushed around. Anger, aversion, ill will, I see you. I know you. It's time for you to grow up. It's time for me to see you and just recognize you and not be caught by you, not be bullied by you or seduced by you into your world. I just see you. It's a powerful thing to see. And so the 5 hindrances are very important things for mindfulness practitioners to really learn well. And we just, scratch the surface, but the emphasis is right now, as I did last week, is just pointing out how important they are for your study. And the book you should read is inside you, how it works for you. So today, it's what's called the 5 faculties. It's part of the inner ecology of attention. There are different factors of mind that are mobilized when we bring attention to something. In fact, they're not unique to meditation. They are pervasive. They're there all the time, and no matter what we're doing, these 5 factors are there to some degree. If you are going to ride your bicycle, if you don't have confidence that you're going to ride your bicycle, you can get kind of wobbly. But if you have confidence, it can go kind of easy. And you have different degrees of confidence depending on where you ride. But you can feel the confidence changing. If you're riding a bike down a steep hill going fast and it's all wet at the bottom, you should probably not have a lot of confidence that you're going to make it through, especially if you have to turn at the bottom, which I did once when I was 14. And the bike kept going and I didn't. Fell off. So so what kind of confidence is, there's some confidence in riding a bike. You have to apply effort in riding your bike. The application of effort, the hearing that language of application of effort, some people just get tired hearing it. Oh, more effort. But some people who would hear that and think, what a drag, they would just jump on their bike right away. They'd love riding their bike. They don't think of it as applying effort, they're playing. But there's some energy involved, some effort involved, some application, engagement. There has to be some attention, awareness of what you're doing when you're on a bike, which I didn't have when I was also 14. I had wonderful bike stories when I was 14. I was riding my bike happily along, and the next thing I knew, I ran smack into a car that was parked. What was it doing there? Suddenly it got, where was I? My attention was not, I wasn't very mindful. I don't know what I was doing at the moment, but I clearly didn't see the parked car. There was lack of mindfulness. And then it helps if you have some concentration when you're on your bike. Sometimes you really need to be focused and stay there. The cars are going by, things are going on. You have a narrow thing you have to pass through. And so you have to have some ability to stay kind of focused and concentrate on what you're doing. And then when you ride a bicycle, you need to have some understanding of what's happening. You have to understand, there's water there, there's gravel there, there's a parked car there, you better get out of the way. There's a bike when I was a young kid, there were railroad tracks or trolley tracks, and you don't want to have your bike fall into the trolley tracks. So I had the understanding to not fall into them. And if I was going to cross them, I had to cross them with enough angle so I wouldn't fall in. So there's a whole slew of understandings. But I used the example of the bicycle because for some people who have been biking for some time, these things become second nature, and we don't think that they're operating. but they are operating. And at some point, if something happens to you, you notice you lose some of those abilities. You lose your confidence. You have an accident, or you get sick, or you have injury or something, you don't have confidence anymore. You don't have the energy anymore. So all kinds of things can happen. Cooking, these 5 faculties, 5 mental factors, have to be there to some degree. And so it's possible to evaluate anything you do from the point of these 5 different factors. And they can be very helpful because sometimes you can identify where something is kind of not quite right. You can recognize that I'm not so confident here, and so I'm hesitating, and that's kind of interfering. Or I'm not really giving myself to the task at hand. Or I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. Or I'm not really focused on what I'm doing. It's the difference between paying attention and really focused and really giving yourself focused attention. Or I'm not paying attention in a way where I can understand what's happening. I can tell the details and what's needed here and there and how to adjust. So these are, for many situations in life, these are second nature to do this. In tasks which are new and we're trying to learn, then sometimes it's helpful to point out these different factors, and we develop confidence or energy or understanding. All these things are developed over time by doing it. So the same thing happens in meditation. Same thing happens with mindfulness. It's possible to recognize, it's possible to have mindfulness supported by confidence. If there's plenty of confidence, it can be really easy to be mindful. If you have more confidence in mindfulness than you have in your neurosis, then you'll give more attention to your mindfulness. If you have more confidence in attention than you have in your ill will or your desire or your hindrances, it's easier to want to be mindful. But not that anybody thinks this way about themselves, but functionally, what it looks like is a lot of people have a lot of confidence in their desire, their aversion, their sloth and torpor, their doubt, especially doubt. I mean, when that comes up, boy, am I confident in my doubt, because I'm not going to let up. I'm just like zeroing in. I'm just like thinking about it and lost in my doubt, concerned. And we don't think of the confidence being part of it, but there's a kind of confidence there. So the idea is, if you can have more confidence in the mindfulness, it's easier to engage in it. You know it's valuable, it's important, you believe in it, and so yes, I want to show up and do this. So what's the degree of confidence? This effort. I've known people who kind of think it's, and I've seen it in myself. I think, I have confidence, I should do this. This is the day to do it. Okay, I've made time, I'm going to sit down to meditate. And, well, actually, yes, but, I'll get to it, or, thinking a little bit, and, I'll get around to it, or, the engagement is not there. And sometimes, you can see in yourself how engaged you are, how sincere or intent you are, or how little effort you're making. It's one of the challenges of people who meditate a lot. After a while, it gets easy to meditate, and then a complacency sets in. And complacency means that we're comfortable and relaxed in meditation, but we're no longer giving effort. We're no longer making effort in practice. And in that complacency and relaxed state that people can sometimes attain, the mind begins to wander off into daydream. And they don't even notice it. So what's the level of effort we're making? And then the concentration factor. It's one thing to be mindful, see what's going on, but it's another thing to really give a second look, really be there and hone in on this. What is this hindrance? What is this breathing experience? We really hone in and tune in, like tuning into a radio. We tune into that frequency of the breathing. Tune in, really get to know it. Stay with it, really. And then the understanding piece. So you understand when the mind gets pulled into a hindrance. You understand that that's not what you want to do. You understand when the mind reacts negatively or or to the hindrance being there, and you judge yourself negatively. Because you see yourself doing it, you realize, I don't have to believe in that. I don't have to invest much energy into continuing to be self-critical of myself because I got distracted. I can just practice the respectful attention thing. Look at that. Let me take another look, respectfully, at this mind that got distracted. So there's understanding that's operating. This comes to the question of fixing. We don't necessarily fix, but we have this understanding of what's useful and what we pay attention to, and the different what's happening in the moment. If there's no understanding, then that's not supporting us. So some of you now have learned about the hindrances. You understand something you maybe didn't understand before. So now as you practice, that understanding helps you support you to be more present and less caught in the hindrances. And then finally there's awareness or mindfulness. That awareness, the ability to clearly see what's happening. To have that second look and clearly recognize whether it's the hindrance, whether it's the breathing, whether it's the sensations of your body, whatever you're paying attention to in the moment. Or whether you're noticing the other four faculties, other four factors. You clearly see the degree of confidence, clearly see the degree of effort, of concentration, of understanding. This is not meant to be a lot of work. But when we first start getting on the bicycle, it's kind of wobbly. And you might get tired because you're still getting a hang of it. But after a while, you get the hang of it, and after a while you say, look, Ma, no hands. It's easy, and you just go biking along, and it seems second nature. So as we develop mindfulness practice, as meditation, it becomes after a while stronger and starts becoming more second nature. And some of these different elements of it, noticing how it all works, starts becoming more second nature. It becomes easy. It's obvious. It's, like, how could I ever miss this? How could I never have seen this? So last week I emphasized the importance of getting to know the 5 hindrances. This week it's what's called the 5 faculties in our Buddhist tradition. So confidence, energy, concentration, and understanding. Usually in the understanding piece is called wisdom, which gives it a more grand title. Most people want to be wise rather than understanding, so we call it wisdom. And then, and sometimes the confidence one is called faith, and rather than confidence. And that works for some people, doesn't work for others. I like the word confidence. I also like the word trust. Sometimes to really trust mindfulness, trust awareness, so that we trust awareness, we trust this kind of mindfulness more than we trust the hindrances. And you can see, not measure, but you can kind of notice, gauge the relative degree of trust you have for this practice. And for me, because after doing this practice for a while, one of the great gifts of this practice was a tremendous trust in mindfulness practice. I just I trust it almost more than anything else in my life, because I've seen so many circumstances how mindfulness is like the door to freedom, the door to understanding, the door to find my way and understand how to navigate this world that we live in. It's power, so I have this unshakable faith in mindfulness and attention that I didn't used to have. So last week it was the 5 things that make it hard to be mindful. This week is the 5 things that support our ability to be mindful. Do you have any questions or comments you want to make about that, or any things you want to ask about that meditation practice that we did? And while you're thinking about asking the question, maybe I can ask someone, maybe Hillary or someone, to go up in my office or on the counter upstairs somewhere. There's a colored sheet of paper with today's handout. Yes, please. So you can use the mic. It's on when the light is on.
You once mentioned that sometimes in the evening when you come and try to meditate, there are times when you would feel very sleepy, but after some time, so you will just, at that time you accept that, and after a while you will wake up to extreme clarity.
Yes, that was a pattern I had for a while.
Yeah, so how do you know when to put in the effort and when to let go? So because sometimes it happens in the evenings when I try to meditate, there is like this, you start off alert, but then as you start meditating, you get into a very sleepy state, and then you come out of it.
You had that experience too?
I have that experience
Great.
very often.
Oh, so good.
But it could be a good 20 minutes. So you don't know whether you should resist and focus and put your concentration and count 1, 2, 3, or just give up. So
Never give up. So what I mentioned sometimes, that there was a period of my life where I'd meditate around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening, coming back from work. And I'd been up since 4:30 or 5, so it was reasonable. I was tired by that time, busy day and getting up early. And I would sit for 40 minutes, and the first 20 minutes I was nodding off and kind of falling asleep. And then at some point, I just would wake up, and it was super clear, really nice and clear and crisp. It was so good, because I guess I had a kind of a nap. Or something, or something had dissipated. I kind of shed some kind of tiredness or something. But I never gave up. I never used it as a technique. I didn't think, well, now I should take a nap by sitting here. I don't think that's useful. But rather, I tried my best with the ability I had when I was so sleepy to practice. But the amount of my ability was really low. So my practice was not very hot, not very good. But I didn't worry about that. I was content to do the best I could, not as the best as a super person could do, just best I could that moment. So that sincerity, that dedication is needed, and it helps if you're not bothered by the sleepiness. Don't be upset with yourself. Don't be upset with yourself that you're not succeeding in staying present because you keep drifting off. But whenever you can, you make your best effort. And that's the way and then trust the process. So even if you're falling asleep, okay, wake up, do again, try again, do your best. But don't try too hard. Like, don't count really vigorously and hard, and just be sincere and try your best. And so that's what I did. So that's what you're referring to. Is that, you think, give you something?
So I was struggling a little bit with the guided meditation. I feel, and after you explained, it became a little more clear, but still confusing. I think the 5 hindrances, they were clear to me. The 5 faculties, they're not clear to me because they seem to be overlapping. It was, the other one was clear what category.
Each were different from each other.
Yes, but it's kind of like, understanding. Well, if I'm not concentrated, I don't have understanding. If I'm not confident, I'm not concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're all intertwined.
Yes, I think so.
The other one was clear, so
yeah, well, they're often intertwined. Hindrances are maybe sometimes more intertwined than we realize. They operate together. We have desire. And
but what I meant is I could see I have both, right?
Yeah. I think what you're saying is accurate. That these are part of the ecology of the mind, and so they work together in harmony and in relationship to each other. So so how much they overlap, or how much they're not so completely discrete, but you can have a sense of. Some people have a lot of confidence, lots of faith, lots of trust, but they have very little understanding. Some people have a lot of understanding, but not enough trust to kind of just relax and just stay with the process. People who who read a lot about meditation, they can know a lot, they can understand so much. They can know like better than me, you know, all the different ins and outs of meditation and how it all works. But they've never done it. But they sit down, all this understanding comes along, and they're like, you know, buzzing, and, you know, because of the understanding. They have no trust, they have no ability to have confidence and relax. Concentration has a lot to do with relaxation, being stable. So they can't concentrate and stay in a relaxed way present for the experience. So all these things come into play together. And sometimes it's really clear that one is lacking, one is really weak. Other times it's clear that one is really strong. And sometimes they exist in balance, and that's part of a whole series of teaching in Buddhism, keeping the 5 faculties in balance because they relate together. And the 2 pairs that are set to balance is faith or confidence and wisdom or understanding. And if there's too much of one or too much of the other, it doesn't go so well. I think that if you have a lot of understanding, a person can be swimming in their understanding, thinking about what they want, trying to negotiate, trying to fix, trying to analyze what's going on. But they don't have faith in the process, so they don't relax and settle down and let the thinking mind get quiet. There's no inspiration for it. You don't really believe in the process. Don't believe in the. Sometimes the confidence has to do with confidence in oneself. They have no confidence that they can do it. They don't trust themselves enough. There are other people who have excessive confidence in themselves, but they have no understanding. And so they keep making the same mistake over and over again. So this is the classic Buddhist image of this is, maybe you don't have to like this, maybe it's not a nice analogy, but it gives you the idea that faith is like someone who's blind, and wisdom is like someone who can see, and so but has no strength. The faith person can't see but is very strong, but the wise person is weak but can see clearly. So the faith person puts the wise person on the shoulders, and together they can find their way. And then effort and concentration go together, because the idea of concentration in Buddhism is a focusing continuously or really honing into something, together with relaxation. And so the concentrated mind is also a very relaxed mind. So you don't concentrate by bearing down in Buddhism. You concentrate almost by letting go and softening into the experience, but really concentrating. And but because it involves relaxation, it needs to be balanced with effort and energy. If there's not enough energy, people who get concentrated will fall asleep. But if there's no concentration but a lot of energy, it tends to be agitating. So we sit down, we just had a cup of, coffee, intense coffee, and we're really energized and agitated, but there's no concentration. So part of what we do in meditation is sometimes to be able to recognize these things, especially energy and concentration, to see, I'm getting too concentrated here with not enough energy. I need to up the degree of engagement. Or I'm too energized. I think I need to calm down. Let me just stay concentrated on the breath for a while, ride the breath, soothe myself with the breath, relax with the breathing. And as I get focused and concentrated on breathing, the energy level comes down to a more useful way.
I think I understand where my confusion was. I think I took those words differently than you explained.
You're using the words differently?
Yes, because like if I was going to write again, I guess I was thinking about your homework from last week. And so I would think, okay, I'm very concentrated on this set with very little effort. But then on that set, I put a lot more effort to get that level of concentration. So I think I'm seeing it differently. I just need to...
Maybe not, but this is what I said earlier too. Don't worry too much about getting exactly what I'm saying. What's important is that you have an understanding that you're experimenting with, and you're finding your way, your ecology, how your mind works, and it supports you to become clear, more present, more free. I think that's probably, you're close enough. We can pass the mic straight back. No, but it's so some people have hearing assistant devices, and
so since confidence and trust go together, when confidence is low, then we need to believe, right? We need to trust the system.
oh,
But what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
Trusting the system, just
so trusting. So I like the word trust. For some people, the word trust doesn't work because trust and faith, for example, people associate sometimes with blind religious belief, like have to believe the creed or the tenets. When you ride a bicycle, you can also say, I trust that it's okay to ride my bike across this road or on this trip. And that's a simple where I trust it. It means, I have confidence in it means that I'm confident in myself taking this trip. If I say I trust taking the trip on the bike, that means not only that I trust that I can do it, but I trust the conditions are just right on the roads and the traffic, and I trust that the world out there is good enough that I can make my trip on the bike. So trust is a little bit bigger than confidence. Confidence tends to be, in my vocabulary, more personal, whereas trust is kind of a wider thing. And so for me, when I use the word trust in mindfulness, it's not just trusting my ability to practice, but trusting the overall process that I'm part of when I'm practicing. Does that make some sense?
yeah, totally.
So,
I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about this balance between concentration and energy. And in particular, I've noticed that I've had times where I'm feeling very calm and settled in meditation, and I'm starting to kind of doze off a little bit. But I guess when I think of putting effort in, a lot of times it seems to be laser focus, bearing down sort of thing. It seems to add a lot of
I can't quite hear. When you think of putting a lot of effort in, then
it tends to be agitated effort.
okay, yes.
And I'm curious if there are approaches where it may be less agitating.
Well, I'm a little bit, maybe a little apologetic to offer you this kind of answer, and that is that first I want to say it's great that you see that. So sometimes you have an agitated effort, and because you see it, then that's understanding. And you're saying that somehow that doesn't quite work. So you have two general choices, wise choices. One is to give that a second look, and just bring this respectful attention to the agitated energy. What is that like? And just be curious about it and be with it. And it probably changes if you bring that kind of respectful attention just to see it. The other thing you can do is you might say, well, maybe there's another way. And maybe there's some way of settling it. Maybe there's another way of applying effort. And so you can experiment a little bit with different things. And one of the experiments is to choose something very simple like the breathing and just stay with the breathing for a while. Maybe breathing a teeny bit bigger breaths and relaxing as you exhale until maybe that will relax you and the agitation will fall away. Is that understandable? The different options? But what I'm doing is turning it back to you to experiment with, because you're understanding what you're seeing is great. And so now that you see it, the task is really for you to start, looking around and experimenting.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the concept of what right effort looks like is also just a little bit nebulous. It's kind of fuzzy in my mind. What exactly that effort is that we are applying.
Yeah, I think that that's one way of knowing what's the appropriate effort is that it's not agitating and it's not dull. It feels like a clean application.
I have often wrestled with the same thing, and when I find that bearing down, so to speak, then I find that my agitation, I have to like bring it back to the body for me. Like if whatever's swirling around in me, there's somewhere physically where I can try to kind of find where that the nucleus is, I guess, and then I just bring the breath there. So.
Very nice. So if you find, you're saying that if there's too much energy going on, you can look around the body where that energy lives. And if you bring attention to that, to hold that with the respectful attention, it can settle out by itself. Yeah, very nice. So I'd like to in the back there. She hasn't had a chance.
Thank you. I think sort of flipping this one, right? So if you're, and kind of aligning that with the sleepiness problem that we were talking about earlier, which is, if it's not that you're concentrating and you're falling asleep and you simply cannot bring up the level of energy, the feeling I have is sort of like swimming in oil, trying to come out of it. And I'm wondering if there's approaches you suggest to do the opposite of what I think they were talking about, which is calming down the agitation and kind of bring up the energy.
Yes, very good. So sometimes you can sit up straighter. And just sitting up straighter can give more energy and alertness. Sometimes you can brighten the mind by focusing a little more actively to recognize what's happening in the moment. And some people use what's called mental noting. And so if you use mental noting to note, in the mind you're kind of saying, hearing, breathing, sensing, aching. But you do it a little faster and a little bit louder in the mind, so there's more energy to it. So those are some simple ideas. Some people open their eyes, and there tends to be a little more alert if the eyes are open. Some people who find themselves that sleepiness is a real issue that seems like a drag, and don't have the nice experience of waking up halfway through or something. Sometimes it's really great in daily life practice to, instead of doing sitting meditation, to do walking meditation. And because when walking tends to bring more energy in, and we tend to be more alert. And some people find that walking meditation works better for them than sitting meditation. Or if you like to sit, you might do 10 minutes of walking meditation, maybe even a little bit of vigorous walking meditation to get the energy going, and then to sit down. So, yeah, here. Yes?
My question is how do you distinguish needs from desires?
What was the first one? Distinguish?
Needs and desires.
Me? Need.
Yes. I consider desire as something you can live without, but you consider needs as something you can't live without.
Uh-huh.
And I think when I meditate, I can mentally solve everything through meditation, but sometimes your emotion just does not agree with it. So it's always sort of conflicts between the minds and the emotion. How do you solve that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say, but that there's a difference between need and desire. One of the reference points for this is meditation practice. And in meditation itself, you hopefully will choose a time and place to meditate where in that time, in that location, during that time, there's no needs that have to be satisfied. So you've had enough. For example, you've had enough food to eat, so you don't need to eat right then there. You do need to eat, but you don't need to eat right then. You don't need to solve some of the problems of your life